Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Whether or Not. Find out in our Nature in the News stories if our solar system has a ninth planet. Find out what a red alert means in Beijing, China, and get the latest on our forecast for a potential snow event this weekend. So sit back, relax, because Whether or Not starts right now. Hello, I'm your host, Marissa Lautenbacher.
And I'm your forecaster, Michael Spagnolo.
So, Michael, I've heard a lot of buzz on social media about where you might get a pretty big snowstorm.
Yeah, not talking about a major winter storm here in central Pennsylvania, but there's definitely going to be a nor'easter, a pretty good blizzard for parts of the mid-Atlantic. The heftiest snow totals look to be in southeastern Pennsylvania, but I'll, of course, have those details on my forecast in just a little bit.
All right, so before the forecast, we have our Nature in the News stories.
The solar system may once again have 9 planets. 2 Caltech scientists announced the possible discovery of Planet 9, a distant object thought to have the mass of 10 Earths. Its orbit is located in the Kuiper Belt, an area in the far reaches of our solar system full of asteroids and the home to Pluto and several other dwarf planets. However, Planet 9 is not thought to be like the other dwarf planets due to its sheer size. Planet 9 is 20 times farther from the Sun than Neptune and has yet to actually be visibly observed. Instead, only its gravitational pull has been observed through its effects on nearby Kuiper Belt objects and dwarf planets.
Beijing has some of the most polluted air in the world, which has been taking major tolls on the city. In mid-December, the smog blanketing Beijing was so thick that the government was forced to issue a red alert for the first time. Red alerts are issued when poor air quality is expected for 3 consecutive days, which prompted the government to close schools and limit the use of motor vehicles. Less than 2 weeks after the first red alert, a second was issued when the World Health Organization forecasted that smog particles would be 20 times higher than the safety limit. Pollution in the city is fairly common due to the high concentration of motor vehicles and coal-burning plants. Natural factors do play a role in the enhancement of life-threatening pollution. The city is backed into tall mountain ranges which act as a barrier for stalling the airflow. Wintertime high-pressure systems can also lead to temperature inversions. Inversions occur when a dense layer of cold air is trapped underneath a warm layer of air, thus trapping the pollutants close to the surface. The thick smog was finally lifted when a front cleared the air, bringing fresh air mass to the area.
It's been 4 months since Novak Djokovic claimed another U.S. Open title in Flushing, New York, after a rain delay in the game against Roger Federer. The tennis season is once again underway, and this time in Melbourne, Australia, for the Australian Open. The weather has brought its own set of challenges, however, as temperatures soared into the lower and then upper 90s for the start of the tournament on Monday and Tuesday. While temperatures have cooled off from the 98-degree high temperature Tuesday, thunderstorms are in the forecast through this weekend. If the players can squeeze in their third-round games between the raindrops, they will be able to enjoy the well below average temperatures in just the lower 70s.
There have been many concerns about how the rare opening of the Bonnet Care spillway will affect this year's oyster harvest. The spillway is only opened to alleviate flooding concerns on the Mississippi River. The excess of river water was diverted into Lake Pontchartrain, which is located 15 miles west of New Orleans. This is the 11th time in history that the spillway was opened during flood threats. Local fishermen are concerned that the diversion of fresh water will impact oyster reefs, which has happened before when the spillway was opened for more than a month in 2011. The excess fresh water in the delta can kill off oysters or stunt growth because of the dilution of the water's salt content. The Fisheries Public Information Director has reported that they have been monitoring day-to-day conditions in order to be prepared for a quick response if the oyster resources are in jeopardy. If the population is severely affected, the oysters will be relocated.
A nor'easter will be impacting parts of the mid-Atlantic and northeast this weekend. A low-pressure system has been developing along the Gulf Coast states, and that's going to continue to track off to the south and move north-northeast. Precipitation will break out during the day on Friday as some ice and sleet across parts of the Carolinas, light snow into Virginia, and then that snow will begin to move north throughout the evening hours on Friday through Maryland and eventually into Pennsylvania Friday night. Now, the storm system will track off the coast. It'll begin to really strengthen just off the Delmarva Peninsula. We'll expect a little bit of rain on the immediate coast. There'll be a brief period of mix in some locations, especially near the coast, of some rain and some sleet. Maybe even a little bit of sleet will get into the Philadelphia area. Most of the state will see an all-snow event, however. Heavy snow will be falling all along the I-95 corridor from Baltimore to Washington, D.C., even down to Richmond, Virginia. I-81 corridor along the Blue Ridge Mountains will see some snow. Heavy snow in Philadelphia into Jersey. We'll have a little bit of light snow here in State College. The bulk of the precipitation with this storm will be centered to our south and southeast. Not talking about a major winter storm here in State College, but if you are south and southeast of Centre County, you can expect significantly more accumulation than we have here in State College. That low pressure system will begin to rapidly strengthen. We do expect some coastal flooding and high winds, blizzard conditions from Baltimore to Washington, D.C. As that storm system will move off the coast on Sunday, snow will begin to taper from west to east. A few snow showers will still be around along the coastal regions on Sunday, but here in central Pennsylvania, we expect clearing skies in the morning and a pretty beautiful day in the afternoon. Temperatures will be much more mild than they have been the last couple of days, getting into maybe even the low 30s in some locations. Here's your forecast, though. 27 degrees for your Friday, increasing clouds here in State College. By the evening hours, we can expect some light snow to begin to develop. A low temperature of 20. Of course, that snow can be heavy at times to our south and southeast. During the day on Saturday, light snow here, heavy snow to our south and east. Maybe just a few flurries if you're north and west of State College. High of 26 degrees. And then for your Sunday, or Saturday night rather, a low of 14. That snow will begin to taper from west to east. It'll hang around for a little bit east of State College into Sunday morning, but it'll quickly pull out. We'll see some sunshine, and temperatures will climb up to about 30 degrees for your afternoon. Now, as I said before, it's going to be all snow here in State College. A brief period of mix is possible in extreme southeastern Pennsylvania, and that's really not going to hammer down on the snow totals too much in that region, so we still expect more than a foot of snow to fall from Philadelphia and southeastern Pennsylvania. And then we expect a good couple of inches of snow here in State College. Nothing to write home about, that's for sure, for this time of year, but do expect some accumulations in the way of a couple of inches, and it will be covering the roads because of the cold temperatures, so regardless, there will be some travel issues. There'll be major travel problems, however, if you are traveling south, particularly along I-95 down to Baltimore and Washington. Extreme travel difficulty starting late on Friday and especially during the day on Saturday. Roads are going to be near impassable as they are expecting 1 to 2 feet of snow in this location with blizzard conditions with the wind. If you are traveling east towards Philadelphia or New York City, it's going to be still rather difficult to travel. So if you can, please try and plan your travel ahead of time or wait until after the storm has passed and the roads begin to be plowed earlier on during the day on Sunday. Michael Priante is next with a feature on naming winter storms.
Wilma, Katrina, Isabel, and Sandy. If these names ring a bell, it's most likely because they are names of powerful and destructive hurricanes that left severe impacts to the United States coastline. Naming of these severe storms started back in the late 1950s, where female names were used. This changed by the late 1970s, as the National Hurricane Center adopted the use of both male and female names for each season. Although these storm names are now retired, they left impacts that will never be forgotten. So why exactly are we talking about hurricanes in the middle of winter? Well, it doesn't have to do with any sort of tropical activity, but just like hurricanes are named, so too are winter storms. In 2012, the Weather Channel started an initiative which led to the introduction of naming winter storms. Their goal, as presented by hurricane expert Brian Norcross at this year's American Meteorological Society conference in New Orleans, was to raise awareness of winter storms and use it as a social media platform. By assigning a name, it would ultimately lead to more discussion and more proactive measures taken by the general public. But what does the general public actually think of these new naming conventions? Well, I got a chance to interview 2 individuals on their take on the Weather Channel's new naming of winter storms.
Well, I think they're interesting. I think that the idea is good in theory because it does sort of garner more attention to something if it has a name associated with
I
it.
think it makes the storms more memorable and it makes people pay attention to them more because when you name a storm, you're like kind of giving it an identity, and that makes it more memorable and it makes it easier to I guess like you can kind of attach yourself to it. Like, oh yeah, that was the storm that did this. That was Hurricane Katrina, or that was like the winter storm, as opposed to like that was the winter storm of blah 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 year, because those dates are like less memorable.
The only problems that I see with it now is a private company, sort of with the idea of it. If it was run by the government like they do with hurricanes, I feel like that would be a more centralized way of doing it. It creates some confusion, but I think it's a good idea in theory.
Despite the efforts by the Weather Channel to promote winter storm names, the National Weather Service has not and will continue to not acknowledge the use of this naming convention for winter storms. One day, however, the Weather Channel hopes for the National Weather Service to take over this naming convention. But until they do so, winter storms will not have the privilege of being named just like hurricanes. For Weather or Not, I'm Michael Priante.
Thank you for that feature, Michael. Pretty appropriate considering the winter storm that will be impacting the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast this weekend. A quick recap on your weekend forecast. A little bit of sunshine on Friday, turning cloudy later on in the day. A high temperature of 27 degrees. Temperatures will then drop to 20 as that snow will begin to fall from south to north. It'll also be heavy at times to our south on Saturday. Just some light to moderate snow here in State College for your day on Saturday. A few inches of accumulation on possible. A major winter storm, though, for southeastern Pennsylvania. High of 26. A cold night on Saturday, though, but that snow will then begin to taper Saturday night into Sunday as sunshine will return, mostly sunny, and temperatures will actually be pretty mild. Considering the weather we've had the last week or so, getting to 30 degrees, and we'll even be flirting with above freezing temperatures into the start of next week. Of course, as you saw in the almanac, our average high temperature is 34 degrees. This is the climatologically coldest time of the year in central Pennsylvania, and our temperatures have been some of the coldest we've had so far this winter. It looks like we'll have a brief warm-up into the start of next week, so we'll be dry on Monday as well. Temperatures getting into the upper 30s. Of course, it probably will not be quite as warm into southeastern Pennsylvania, especially with that thick snowpack that they will have. But we have a brief clipper system coming through Tuesday, late on the day. Could bring a few flurries. Temperatures will then flirt right around the average mark into the middle 30s for the middle of the week. Wednesday and Thursday look dry. And then we could be talking about another storm system into the next part of the weekend. Friday into Saturday next week, could be looking at another impactful winter storm. We'll, of course, have all the details for you on our show next week to let you know what to expect from that storm. But do enjoy the nice weather the next couple of days. Sunday and Monday really look like great days to get outside and maybe warm up just a little bit.
All right, thank you, Michael, for that forecast. But it looks like we haven't had our big snowfall for this season yet.
Yeah, we have not. And despite the light accumulations I'm forecasting for State College this weekend, it does look like it's going to be our biggest snowfall we've had this winter. Of course, after the mild December, we have not had a storm yet this January, but not to worry. In fact, most of our big storms actually happen later on in the winter, so there's still plenty of time for us to make up that snowfall deficit.
All right, well, speaking of larger snowfall totals, our weather whiz quiz question: when was the last time State College saw over a foot of snow from a single storm? Was it A, 1998, B, 2007, or C, 2010, D, 2005? If you guessed B, then you are correct. Let's see if we can break that streak for this season. I'm your host, Marissa Lautenbacher.
And I'm your forecaster, Michael Spagnolo. We'll see you next week.